Welcome back to the Electrical Building Design Show. I'm David Robinson, and today I'm joined by Sam Miller, founder of BETI, the Building Engineering Training Institute. He's helping firms solve one of the biggest problems in our industry, finding and training new electrical engineers. Sam, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, David.
Let's start with your background. How did you get into electrical design and what led you to launch BETI?
Sure. So I went to school at Ohio State for electrical engineering, and throughout that time, I had several different internships, none of which were related to MEP. And like a lot of engineers, I kind of fell into MEP after graduating. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and was looking for an electrical engineering job and saw that, so many of the available jobs were for MEP, which I had literally didn't even know what the acronym meant at this point. And so, yeah, I eventually got my first role in Columbus after a couple months of looking after graduation, landing an MEP with absolutely no prior experience, right? I had never worked with AutoCAD or Revit or done any type of electrical design. My previous internships were all over the place, like power and semiconductors and coding, all these different areas that we can go in as electrical engineer. Um, and so after working for several years in the industry, I kind of realized, the gap between school and new engineers, right? From my own struggles of trying to learn the design industry, from becoming a manager and then being responsible for the training of new engineers and also seeing them struggle with a lot of the same things that I have, while also realizing just the need for new engineering talent at basically every firm that I've worked with. So that's what led me to start BETI, right? Is to really help create training programs that allow new engineers to become aware of MEP and then get up to speed quickly and start to enjoy their careers in this industry.
Yeah, you mentioned early on feeling unprepared. What was missing from your education and how did mentorship change that path?
Yes. So feeling unprepared, I mean, I came into MEP and I just really did not know even the very, very basics, right? We're talking about like simple power calculations. Like I had one power class in school, but it wasn't looking at, how panel boards are working and how different voltage distributions work. So like I was missing the core basics, right? Um, and with mentorship, I mean, that's really exactly what allowed me to grow, because I remember at my first job, sitting there, it's like I think I was asked to do some basic lighting calcs and power things, and they would give me some guidance. But several months into my first job, I think my seats got rearranged where they're like, okay, well, we need to actually sit Dave, one of my first mentors, right next to Sam, because Sam is very behind, right? Not getting it, making, core mistakes of things that just shouldn't be happening, right? And after, sitting next to Dave for several months where he can kind of look over what I'm doing, I have someone to bounce questions off of, things just really, really started to change, where I went from, having no idea what I was doing, feeling that imposter syndrome of like, am I even supposed to be here? Right. Like I feel like I'm very behind, to, really starting to get what we're doing in the MEP industry and becoming, excited for what we do.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty big gap between what people are learning in university right now and what you actually need to do electrical building design. That's not really taught in classes.
Yeah. I mean, with electrical engineering, you can go do so many different things, right? Like the MEP market is actually the biggest sub discipline, if you want to call it that, of electrical engineering, with like about like 20% of grads working in this field. But then from there, there's just so many other things. So we get taught, power, we get taught semiconductors, we get taught signals and systems. The first couple of years are a lot of just core math things. So you learn a really broad spectrum of stuff, and very little of that is actually what we apply in the workplace, in construction.
Yeah. So for those who haven't heard of Betty yet, what exactly do you do and who is it for?
Yeah. So BETI, it stands for Building Engineer Training Institute, and we are an Autodesk training center. So we help new students or new engineers get up to speed with both design and Revit. So really, our our audience, our target, the people we work with are current college students, um, recent graduates from college, and then junior engineers in their first year or so at MEP firms. And then we've also worked with career changers as well. So people trying to, maybe they've been in the trades and they want to get involved on the engineering path. So what we do is, take students through a 3-week boot camp where we're teaching the design skills. We have both electrical and mechanical programs. So we're talking about, the fundamentals of design, how to think like an engineer, what codes we're using, how to make decisions when we're designing plans, but then how to do everything in Revit as well. So it's really learning the software, learning the design, and doing it on a real project that mimics what we do at an engineering firm.
So you're doing the engineering, you're also doing Revit. You mentioned that you're a Autodesk training center. So are you partnered with Autodesk then?
Yeah, so we have a partnership with Autodesk. So all of our students, we give them software licenses. When they graduate, they get certification from Autodesk for completing our program. And yeah, Revit is a core feature of our training programs because really, in my mind, you can't really train electrical design and MEP without having Revit. And it kind of goes both ways, right? Like if you're going to be working in Revit, you should really learn how to do the design at the same time because they're so tightly linked.
Okay. Why is it so hard to find electrical engineers right now?
Hard to find. So I think especially within the MEP industry, there's several reasons, right? I think I wrote a whole LinkedIn post about this with different points, but in my mind, it comes down to three main things, which is awareness, training, and retention. So the first thing, awareness, right? It's just like I literally didn't know that MEP was a available path for me until after I graduated. Just wasn't mentioned, right? Until I started looking for jobs. And so I think the awareness of our industry specifically for new engineers is a huge problem, and we need more, just content or whatever ways to raise awareness to make sure that electrical engineers in school know that this is something that they can do.
Do you have any thoughts? Why is there that gap in school?
Why is there?
Why is it not mentioned?
I mean, I think it's because, I mean, and MEP is not the most like attractive place of engineering when you think of, electrical engineering. I would say is one reason, right? Like we're designing buildings. This has been around for a long time and not much has changed. To me, I mean, I love engineering. I get MEP engineering. I get super excited about it, but it's not like the newest high tech semiconductor DSP thing that goes on, right? There's also like research. I don't know how much research is driving the programs of MEP, right? We've been working with the same technology for a long time in construction. And so, yeah, I mean, I know that there's like architectural engineering programs that are popping up more and more, but it's still not like a huge program with schools. I think a lot of those programs are much more aligned with what we're doing in industry. But electrical engineering, I mean, there's just so many different areas you can choose. And, MEP is just kind of falls off when it comes to.
Yeah. You said we're the biggest at 20%, but there's still 80% of other things that you could do.
Yeah, which is, it to me is wild, right? There's 20% is the biggest. The next biggest is like 10%, which I think is power. And then there's just so many small industries that electrical engineers get involved in.
You had two more things on.
Oh yeah,
finding electrical engineers.
Two more things.
I interrupted you. Sorry.
Sure. No, that's great. So yeah, awareness is one, training is the other, because this is where, for me, I saw this firsthand. I see this with a lot of our students too, is, electrical engineers graduate and then they apply to all the jobs that say electrical engineer, and they don't have any MEP training or, relevant skills on their resume. So they get glanced over at MEP firms, right? Like this person has no skills that are going to directly apply. So we need someone with a little bit more training or applicable skills to be able to bring them on, right? Because there's the lack of training once they get there to really help them grow. We want people with some skills. And so I think a lot of electrical engineers graduating are just kind of falling where they can find jobs, and at MEP they don't have skills that apply, so they kind of get passed over. Which also goes to the next part of retention, right? So the gap of training once they get on the job, it's like I've seen this, myself with people I've worked with and with our students where you get to your firm and then you feel that imposter syndrome. You feel like you're not able to contribute. You're so confused on what you're actually doing. And if you don't have the training that's, really helping you grow, you may work for a year or two and realize like, hey, I still don't know this stuff. I don't feel like I'm growing. I don't really like what I'm doing in MEP. And so I'm going to leave the industry, right? Which is a shame. But without that, training and nurturing, I think we do have a real big retention problem in our industry as well.
Yeah. Where are the firms struggling with that training on their junior staff?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a cycle, right? Because we need engineers. There's a shortage of engineers in general, right?
Yeah.
And so then a new engineer comes along that needs to be trained. And how are we going to train them? Or we're going to pull our senior engineers who are already overloaded to try and train the junior engineers, right? And then it adds more work to them and stress to them to try and train because everybody wants to train the junior engineer, right? Like no firm is like, we don't want to train our junior engineers. Everyone wants that, but it's just a hard thing to do because firms have so much work already. And so I think that, that's really the gap we look to fill is to partner with firms and help them get, students up to speed fast while their senior engineers can continue to work on their projects.
So they want to train, but they don't have the resources to make that happen.
Exactly.
Okay. So walk us through your program. What do students actually do during your training?
Yeah, so our training is all based around a project. So students are designing a coffee shop, whether it's mechanical or electrical, they're going to be going through the same coffee shop. And we really take them to about 100% DD level drawings for this design. And it's over the course of 3 weeks, and we have it broken up into a couple different areas of learning. So essentially, we'll provide them with the software, and then they will get access to our online course, which is pre-recorded videos that talk about both the electrical design and the Revit demonstrations, right? So it's like, okay, here's what you need to know for week 1, where we're setting up the project for electrical. What do electrical engineers do? What's our responsibility? Where do we fall in construction projects? And then, okay, here's a Revit demonstration that kind of shows you how to get set up. And then really where much of the learning happens is the homework, right? So each week, students will be developing their project to submit for a deliverable. And so they take what we've done on the videos and then expand upon that, right? The demonstrations is not just like, click here, move that there. Here's the basics. And now, create more sheets, create more view, circuit more equipment. And so we take them through 3 weeks of that. We have live aspects of our program as well. So we'll meet one-on-one with students. We'll have group sessions where, students are sharing their screen. Either myself or another PE is watching, what they're doing and answering questions as they have them. So the live sessions are really Q&A. And then at the end of the program, they'll have developed, a DD level set for a full coffee shop, which gives them insight into a lot of different systems that we do, right? And then if they're looking for a job, we'll help them take those next steps.
I like the coffee shop. That's probably just the right size project for what you're trying to do. It's small enough that you can finish it, but it's got some interesting electrical things happening. It's not just an office. You've got some kitchen stuff going on in there. I like that choice.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, it's the coffee shop does allow you to get a little bit of everything, right? Because it's small enough, you can do lighting plans, you can do power plans, but then, a big part of what we do is, understanding how to read different cut sheets for equipment. So you'll have, mechanical equipment or different kitchen things, but they have different codes associated with them, different voltages, wires, and all that stuff. So yeah, it does give them uh, a taste of everything on a manageable level, because if we were doing, some large project, there was no way we could do it in 3 weeks.
Yeah, you can't throw a hotel project at him or something like that.
Right. No hospitals.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's a component of helping them find a position afterward.
Yeah, so we do offer career development services as well. So not all of our students are actively looking for jobs. A lot of them will be college students that will get ready for searching for internships, or junior engineers that are already at where they are. So The career development is a separate service for those that are actively looking to find a job, which is basically will help you get all of the skills that you've learned on your resume in a way that stands out to hiring managers. So you can say, hey, I've worked under PE to design a coffee shop where we did single lines and panel schedules and picked up markups and, all the things that we actually do in the workplace. So then we'll review their resume, get it looking really well done for MEP focused, and then walk through, the job search strategy, salary expectations, interview questions to be prepared for, best places to find these jobs and career roadmaps, what to expect down the line, things like that.
So what kind of results are you seeing on that? Are there any like success stories that you're proud of or you can highlight?
Yeah, so that's always the best part of what we've done, right? Is when students that were not in the industry get their first job at MEP and are happy where they're at. So one of our first students is a here who's actually in the UK, was working at his first job in the water industry as a mechanical engineer, but had heard about, all of the growth in MEP and was looking to move into the industry, but couldn't find the right way in. And so he was one of the first students in our program, and went through our 3-week boot camp, updated his resume, did that career services thing, started applying, got, interviews very quickly after our program ended at several different firms, ended up getting offers at several different firms, and then accepted a job with Jacob, and has been working there for years at this point. So that's super exciting. And, we have more success stories like that with college students finding jobs, right after graduation. And another thing that I'm proud of and excited about is just partnering with engineering firms as well, where, we work with several engineering firms and some on multiple occasions where, they'll have a new hire, we'll help them get up to speed. And then the next time they have maybe an intern or a new hire, they give us a call, we help get them up to speed. And that's just been, really great to see new engineers learning, engineering firms appreciating the support we can give them and helping, new engineers join the industry.
Yeah, for those new engineers joining existing firms where you're doing the training for them, how does your program, how's it different from the other training programs or in-house onboarding that usually happens?
Yeah, so we'll have a call at the beginning of the service to kind of understand this firm specific needs, because one of the biggest things that I get asked about is standards, right? Because standards are so different at every single firm that you work at, right? Um, and so we'll I usually ask to see a set of their drawings, which gives me a better idea of, what are the things that you do in specific ways. Cause for like electrical, there's, things that you're either doing it this way or that way. Like, are you drawing circuit lines through everything, or are you tagging each individual circuit? And then we can kind of customize the program based on that. We'll have different times because for our main boot camp offering, not to firms, most of our classes are in the evenings so that people are working can attend. But with firms, we can change that up to make the schedule, while they're working, if that's what they want to do. Make sure that, some of our lessons are tailored a bit more to the firm specific standards and things like that.
So you're able to work with the companies to match their standards and meet them where what on the training that they need specifically, not just a generic program.
Right. Yeah. We'll make changes where we can to make sure that, we're not showing your new hire, a way to do lighting controls that is completely different from the way that you do lighting controls, right?
Yeah, that's nice. So you're training on Revit. Why did you make that your focus? I mean, you said everyone should be learning Revit. They could also be doing AutoCAD and Excel. You could have been training there.
Yeah. I mean, I thought when I first started BETI, right, like I wanted to do both AutoCAD and Revit, and just realized, what that was going to take. And so I was like, where am I going to start? Right. And to me, that was clear. It's like Revit is, the leading platform at this point. Right. And more firms are being asked to move to Revit, whether it's their clients requiring it or whether it's because they want more smart integration into their software. So one main reason I chose Revit is because of, the adoption, right? It's the newer, more adopted, future proved program, right? And two is the learning curve it's harder to learn Revit, right? There's so much more that goes into learning Revit. There's a lot of data associated with everything that you're doing. So if you get the Revit skills and you understand what's going on with the building inside of Revit, it will be easier to transition back to AutoCAD. There's still going to be a learning curve, right? Of course. But in Revit, you're going to get a better sense of like, here, okay, this receptacle has this much load associated with it. Then we connect it to here. And that's really the reason why we chose Revit to start with.
Yeah, there's actually that integration between what's going on the floor plan and what's going on the panel schedule, where you can help teach that relationship a little bit better.
Yeah, because
Just
that's the
disconnect the Excel and AutoCAD.
right. Everything that you have is inside of Revit, right? Everything that you need. I mean, there's of course like high level items that Revit doesn't have, which we don't get into in a basic 3-week boot camp. Like some of the things that you offer, like voltage drop and fault current calcs, things like that. But for the most part, fundamentals wise, like yeah, you can do panel schedules in Revit. You can connect everything. You can assign the loads. You can change the voltage and the phase. Like everything you need to do is right there.
Okay, yeah, and then you figure they could go back if they needed to go back and do AutoCAD if that's where they ended up at the company.
Yeah, and I think still having that Revit experience is going to be valuable even if you land at a firm that doesn't do any Revit, because that's the way things are going, right? And so if you're the one person that's like, oh, well, I have done some Revit, and then a client comes along and is like, hey, we have this small project and we want it done in Revit, well, suddenly you're the person that has the experience.
Yeah, sets them up
Yeah,
for their future
exactly.
nicely. If I'm running a small electrical firm and I'm desperate to find help, how could BETI help support me?
Yeah, so two main ways really. It's one, if you find a good candidate, like someone that just graduated with an electrical engineering degree but doesn't have any relevant experience, but they're a great personality fit, we would love to help you partner and train them up to get them up to speed, right? Where your senior engineers can stay on their projects, we can help them, get up to speed with Revit, lighting plans, power plans in those first couple weeks. And then you can, help invest in them and train them from that point onwards, right? So that's one way, just partnering with training. The second way is to work with us to help graduates from our program get their first job at your firm, right? So this way you'd be working with people that have already gone through our program and we just help them start at your firm.
How much of a pipeline do you have for people going through your program?
So right now we're about 10 students per month, and we've been doing that for, we started our first boot camp was in October 2023, and we've had up and down parts of that, as the years have gone on. But yeah, we're about 10 students a month right now. And students are all over the place. So, many will be open for relocation, some may not be. And so we like to build up our network with different firms so that when we do get someone that's looking, in North Carolina, for example, well, we have some students that have already graduated down there, right?
Okay. So, what kind of misconceptions do firms have about hiring or training junior staff?
Yeah, I think the major misconception is that on the job training is just going to be enough and they're going to figure it out as they go, right? Like this stuff's not that hard, they'll figure it out over the course of time and it will just work itself out, right? I think that's the biggest misconception because, it may be true for some people, right? And firms have been doing that for a long time and it's worked with some people, right? They get up to speed, they're self learners and it's all good. But I think the problem is it doesn't work with a lot of people as well. And that those are the people that work for 1 to 2 years at an MEP firm and then leave the industry. And then we wonder why we can't find people, right? So I think that it's just, this stuff can be learned quickly, right? But we need to have some type of structure and plan in place for people to go from zero to working in MEP, because I think most firms totally understand that like college is not preparing people to do this work. Like that's not the misconception. The misconception is that, once they start here, they'll be able to just pick it up from on the job training, which is just like, what task are we going to give this person this week?
So, they need a little bit more focused training rather than just hoping they get it by being in the building with the other engineers.
Yeah. Not by osmosis. Right.
All right. So, going back to Revit, what are your students learning and how is the industry helping them succeed with that?
Yeah, so um most Revit, uh what we're really doing in Revit is training them how to design the building, right? So what they're going to be learning in Revit is everything from project setup to circuiting to views, sheets, laying, everything that you need to do for a building, right, inside of Revit. So the first thing, it's like, I mean, we have a long list of things that they learn, like individual skills, right? But it's project-based learning. So you can think, okay, they've opened Revit for the first time, so now they have to figure out what a template is. They need to figure out how to load in the model. They need to figure out create sheets, and they need to figure out how to place devices. They need to figure out to adjust parameters. They need to figure out how to everything that goes in, right, is what they're learning in our program. How the industry is helping them succeed with it. So I think that, sort of like what we just talked about, most training is happening on the job, right? So it's kind of here and there learning from people that already have experience. And the industry in general helping them, I think that there's a lack of that, right? There's a lack of specifically electrical design trainings available out there, because that's the other thing that can get, and I've heard you make videos about this too, is like the whole conversation about BIM, right? So you could look up electrical Revit training and it could be something totally unrelated to what we do as design engineers, because it's talking about how to lay out conduits for a BIM model. And so someone that doesn't know any better may go and watch an hour-long video about how to model conduits and practice model conduits, and then they go talk to their manager like, we don't do that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so there's a lack of focused electrical design training out there, and that's, another place that we're looking to fill.
Yeah. The BIM is a big thing. Electrical is a big thing, and we're the electrical design, which is the small little niche there.
Right.
That
And it definitely gets
we
confused. It definitely gets confused.
yeah. So for the firms that are still on AutoCAD, obviously you are using Revit. You're pretty familiar with Revit. What advice would you give to firms that are trying to move from AutoCAD to Revit? They're still working on that transition.
Yeah, I think it would be to your get clear with the expectations, right, is number one, of what can Revit do? What is Revit good at? Because I think the frustrating thing is, sometimes you think Revit, like moving from AutoCAD to Revit is just going to solve every problem that you could dream of having when you move into Revit. So like there's certain things Revit is really, really good at, and there's certain things Revit is not great at, right? And it's to understand the expectations as you move into Revit so that you know where to build and where to invest, right? Which is, things like, okay, having your electrical data inserted with the families and getting them onto the panel schedules is like bare minimum, right? Like that's what Revit was designed to do. And I've seen firms that are not using that part of Revit, and it's like, you just had to get clear on the expectations. Like, what is Revit good at? What is Revit not good at? And then from there, it's developing a plan to have at least a template, right? At least like a workflow of what we're going to do. Because I think that just, you know, if you've never done anything in Revit and you just open it up and try to run it, there's a lot that needs to be done to get your firm ready to produce at the same capacity that you are in AutoCAD if you've been using AutoCAD for a long time, right? So it's getting the templates in place, making sure that you're, smart motor schedules. That's something that works very well in Revit out of the box, but you have to customize it. You have to build it up a little bit, right? So to get those building blocks in place, understand the things that you may still need external support for, or like, an Excel program or one of your programs or whatever, right? To fill this hole, because Revit's not just going to be like it solves every problem that you've ever had, because that's what causes frustration, right? It's like, well, we're supposed to go to Revit and it's supposed to do all this and then it doesn't. And then now I'm frustrated with Revit. So I want to go back to AutoCAD and not expand into Revit a little bit more. And
To
then,
make sure they understand Revit helps, but it doesn't solve everything.
yeah, I mean, Revit to me is just such a massive upgrade from AutoCAD. It's hard for me to explain that as like just on this call. It's just such a huge upgrade, but it's not just like, it's not perfect, right? And
Yeah.
and there's things that you can do to make it work better and better, but that's the hard thing to understand, right? So where do I plug in to make this better? right? And if you can do some research and spend some time to develop the standards and develop your system to get Revit up to speed, I mean, it's going to be amazing. But without it, it can really be frustrating.
Do you do any work helping people make that transition from AutoCAD to Revit? Is that something you've looked at, or?
Um, I've looked at it, and I did a little bit of that when I started BETI, but to be honest, my focus is new engineers. It's helping new people get up to speed in the industry. And I think with even graduating our program, like if you go to a firm that has never done AutoCAD, you may be able to help them understand, like, look at what you're missing with Revit. Just put the data into these receptacles, circuit them up to the panel schedules, and anytime anything changes, it's automatically going to update, because there's so many firms out there doing things so differently, and just the core parts of Revit that it already has can really, really help.
What's the best way for someone to connect with Betty, whether they're looking for help or just curious about what you guys do?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, betibuilt.com, which is just, yeah, I built, BETI built.com. From there, you can check out our programs. You can send me an email on our contact page. You could also sign up for the free preview of our course, so you can actually get in. You can see behind the scenes of the portal. You can see, some of the lessons that are already going, what the homework assignments look like, and what future lessons would look like. And from there, it would just be, you could, if you're a student or a junior engineer, you'll get a prompt for applying to the program from there. If you're at an engineering firm, then I would recommend just, going through our contact or sending me an email at Sam or at Betty Built, and we could talk about custom solutions for training or helping you find new talent.
All right, we'll make sure to link all that up in the show notes. Any final advice for firm owners or team leads trying to grow their talent pipeline?
Growing talent pipeline. I would just say invest in the newcomers, right? And provide opportunities for people to get into our field. There is a lack of awareness for MEP engineering. And if you look online, there's a lot of negative sentiment for MEP engineering online. And I think one reason is because all of the people that are really happy with what they're doing in MEP aren't online posting about it. And I think it would be great if more people would just post about their experience in MEP, which I have seen more and more of, right? There's, especially on LinkedIn, there's communities of people posting about like MEP engineering and the things going on with it. And the more that comes out from firms, especially documenting what you actually do, like the cool projects you're working on, the successes of your team, like making it seem exciting, because it is exciting to new people, and creating that awareness will really, really go a long way. Right. So that's one thing. The other thing is just, there's a lot of firms out there with job postings for only people with 3 years of experience minimum. Right. And I get that, because it's what we already talked about, right? Like it's hard for firms that are busy to spend any time training. Right. But if we don't train new engineers into the industry and keep them here by providing them good training and reasons to stay and exciting projects to work on, we're going to continue to have this problem where we can't find electrical engineers. Right. So I really think that if you see someone that's like, this person could easily become a great MEP engineer, they just don't have like the Revit or like the power systems design experience, like we've got to figure out ways to give those people a chance and to train them and bring them into our industry, right? And so whether that's, coming up with your own programs to nurture those people, or, calling a partner like us to help you nurture them, like that is, I think, what we can do to help build up the pipeline, right? Creating a positive awareness and providing good training that gets people excited about staying and building a career in MEP.
All right. Thanks very much, Sam, for joining us. Best of luck at Betty. I really appreciate what you're doing for the industry, trying to help out the new people and get that talent pipeline built back up.
Awesome. Well, yeah, David, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate, the invite, and everything that you do to support electrical engineers as well, right? Because I know that those systems, like we talked about, are just critical for better design processes, which is, the key to what we do. So yeah, thanks again for having me, and let's stay in touch.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
All right. See you, David.